Good afternoon. Welcome to the Town of Barnstable Board of Health. I declare this an open meeting for Tuesday, March 26th, 2024. Roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Lee.
Present.
Dr. Guadagnoli.
Present.
Dr. Leskow.
Present.
Dr. Caniff.
Present.
John Norman.
Here.
And Dr. Waller. Thank you. So we have a quorum.
Having quorum. This meeting of the Board of Health is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable Government Access Channel. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Is anyone else recording? Seeing none, we'll move on to the first item on the agenda. Public hearing under policy septic. Public hearing to review and discuss proposed revisions to Section 385-6 and 385-4 and 376-19 regulations. Revision of deadline to submit revised plans. Tom, would you like to give the rationale on this?
Yes, again, the rationale is to provide health staff with reasonable time period to review revised plans, especially if it's an innovative system for commercial property or something like that. They need more than 4 days. Over the, I believe it was a Thanksgiving holiday weekend, it left the inspector with only 4 days to review some technical plans. They needed more time. This would provide health inspectors with a reasonable time period to review revised plans. Of course, if it's a simple revision of just a matter of inches for a T or something like that, we're not asking to hold up a project for another meeting, but this would be for the plans that are more technical.
Thank you for that. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Members of the board, comments or questions? Tom Lee?
Tom, on the first item, 385-4, do you meant by 15 business days to match the 376-19? On the proposed regulation of 15 days.
It should, oh, I'm sorry, that should say 15
Business
days,
days.
calendar days, not business days. They both should match each other.
So they should all
Delete the word
both
business.
calendar?
Calendar days, they're both calendar days.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if it's Sunday, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's just 15 calendar days.
So on 376-19 is 15 calendar day as well?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. That's what we agreed to at the last meeting, that they
Okay.
should match.
Any other members of the board, comments or questions? No. What's the
You okay with that?
will of the board? You want to act on this and go ahead and put it to a vote, or do you think we need more public hearing on this?
Move to approve.
I have a
Second.
motion. I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
So take out the word business.
The next item under public hearing, policy septic. Policy, continued use of septic systems, failed septic systems where public sewer will be provided in the near future, within 2 years. This is a, Tom, you want to do the rationale for this too? Or Tom Lee, or somebody?
Oh, I think we're asking the board to continue this for one more month because there's a few items that need to be addressed, whether or not to have an alarm requirement, if it's for a long period of time. For example, if someone's asking for 6 years to wait for sewer, that's quite a long time to require pumpings. Something to consider. Tom Lee would. And the other issue I'd like to add to this is if they're going to add bedrooms or more, if they're going to apply for building permits to add more bedrooms, that should be addressed in this. I don't think it should be allowed on a failed septic system. For that reason, I asked for postponement to the next month. Tom Lee, do you have something you want to add to this?
No, I kind of looking at those two conditions. I think it's important for us to put that in there because, you know, for 6 years, high-level alarm is important for the homeowner to understand your septic tank is full, that they need to do something. But if it is 1 or 2 years, that'd be too short to require that kind of expense because you probably are looking at around $3,000 to install the system. And then on top of it, in terms of additional bedrooms, if you're doing the pumping, At the same time, you're adding the modified and adding the bedroom in there. You're creating more problems than what is needed. So I think we should consider those. So I will try to modify the language for the review next time.
Yeah, no, I think the spirit of this was not to allow for early expansion or early, increase in flow. It was just to bridge the gap and give residents a little bit of a financial break to say, hey, we know your system's technically under failure, but we're not going to make you put a brand-new system in if sewer is a few years away and then have to go through the expense of hooking up to sewer. But this in no way would, allow them to, during that time frame, apply for a building permit to add a bedroom or 2 bedrooms, and that would nullify. They'd have to put a new system in then at that point, no matter how soon sewer was. If they can't wait, they'd have to go through the expense of a new system, as far as I was concerned. But, yeah, that's fine to continue this. We want public input. We want contractors, realtors, anybody else that has a stake to give us information on this. Dr. Waller?
2 years, in whose opinion? When they're putting in the sewer, I hear all sorts of estimates about when the sewer is going to reach a certain location. And none of them seem to have any credibility. Who establishes 2 years?
Well, we've been relying on DPW for those timeframes. So if an applicant comes in, applies for this, it has to go before the board if they want to bypass having to put a new septic in, and it would come before the board, and then we rely on DPW to assess the location and give us their best estimate of when that area would be done and ready for hookup. Is it an exact science? No, but it's all we can rely on is the DPW. They're in charge of the installation, the inspections of the installation and managing this whole sewer upgrade. Okay. So we'll entertain a motion to continue this to our next meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion, a second to continue it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. That continued. Next item on the agenda, the septic variance. Dan Ojala, Down Cape Engineering, representing Cesar, Brea, and Carmel and Leonard, owners of 26 Park Place, Hyannis, map parcel 286-018. It's a 43,560 square foot parcel, existing 4-bedroom home, proposing adding a full basement under existing dwelling, requesting setback variances. This was moved from our February 27th meeting. Good afternoon, Mr. Ojala.
I'll hand in some green cards.
And just check your green light, Dan, make sure it's on. They can't hear you.
Yeah, I got it the second time there. Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering for the record, helping these folks out at 26 Park Place in Hyannisport. This is over pretty much near the south side. It's in an area where the water sheets south to Nantucket Sound. It's assessed as a 4-bedroom home. It is a 4-bedroom home. Unfortunately, it was an unengineered plan some years back that called it a 3-bedroom, but it is a 4-bedroom, so we installed a 4-bedroom replacement system. That is generally if we were required to do it at any time, that's what we would have done. Dave Stanton looked at this and did a nice, careful review. He noted that there was a couple inch or a half an inch or less than half an inch on the end of the stone. So I do have an updated plan which corrects that. With the H20 risers was noted, and we had a misnomer on the tank. We showed the 1,500-gallon tank, but we corrected 3 little notes on it. I do have a revised plan. Speaking of your de minimis clause, if you'd like that, or if there's anything else, any other changes. The variances are simple. Again, it's a acre zoning. 3,200 square foot lot. We're looking at 7.9 and 7.1 and 7.2. You're squeezing in the system to do the best you can with what you have under maximum feasible. We're 10 feet off of where they're going to put in a foundation under this dwelling. Right now it's concrete blocks and a crawl space, and they're desiring to just lift it up and put a proper foundation under the home, not a rebuild, no expansion in space. But that does necessitate a variance on the setback to the foundation. We find that it's simply not a real issue to have water is, it's pulled down strongly by gravity, and it doesn't tend to go sideways. So those are generally approved at 10 feet without a concern. So we do request that variance. This one, there's a layer of silty loam up on top, which was fairly unsuitable. So we're stripping that down to about elevation 17 and replacing it with nice clean sand. So it'll be a much better system than what it's there now. The bottom of the system is 18 feet above mean sea level. So, and again, it's this water is heading south to the open sound. Be glad to answer. It's not in a zone which restricts bedrooms right now. Be glad to answer any questions if you do have them.
Do you have those revised plans?
I do.
Enough copies for all the members?
I've got 6 copies, maybe 7.
Okay, can you hand those up here, please, so we can just
And
make
again,
sure?
it's a numerical value on the end of the system. The overall size was right, and we crossed out a 1,500 or 1,000, put in 1,500 in one place, and where I'd handwritten a 2, it's now
So
done
that's the
properly.
only revision?
That's the only revisions, yeah. It's very modest.
I don't.
Thank you. Great. So make sure we reference.
We had emailed that over to Dave Stanton middle of last week, but we hadn't had a chance to run them by, but I believe he looked at it.
Okay, so the March 21st, 2024, that's the plan you want us to vote on?
If possible, that would be
Yep, that's fine.
appreciated.
Just want to make sure we don't.
Yeah, it's a tank note and
Approve an
stone
old plan.
dimension. Yes, I agree.
Great, thank you for the rationale. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to come forward and speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Town staff?
Staff has no objections. Just one question. Did you design for the 3 bedrooms plus the den? So did you design for 4?
Yeah, we put it as a 4-bedroom. It is a 4, under your regulations, it's a 4-bedroom home.
Yeah,
so that's-
we're all set. We're all set with this plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that, staff. Dan, just a quick question. So the existing foundation, the layout that's there now, that's going to be a full 8-foot foundation?
Yes.
With living space downstairs, in the basement?
Not
but just
finished.
finished?
Well,
No?
we're not asking for any living space down there that I know of. It's just going to be for utilities and storage. But we,
Since you're digging up, for the strip out anyways, would you have any objections to a liner down? I mean, over 50% of this, back of this foundation is going to be within, the setback distance we like. So if you don't have I don't think that's a huge cost add. If they're going to be stripping out anyways, just on the edge of that strip out, just put a liner down
Yep.
to deflect, just in case. It gets kind of tight, that 10-foot, and you said it was a block foundation?
it'll be a poured concrete, and we can put a nice heavy mastic on that, and then that plus the liner, I think would be in great shape. Happy to do it.
Yeah, if you don't mind that'd be great. That was the only comment I had. Any other members, comments or questions?
The size of the lot on my the application that I got says 43,560, but obviously that's an acre. So it is 2,610 square feet.
Right, yeah, absolutely, that is a typo. That was the zoning acreage, not it's a 3,000. If we had 43,560, I don't think would be here. Would have plenty of room. But it's
3,200.
3,200 is the
And
number.
you'd have a reserve area.
I would have all the work. Yeah, would have an 8-bedroom probably.
And the den on the first floor is a 4th bedroom.
Yeah,
Bedrooms or baths in the cellar.
no.
It's a crawl space now, right?
Yeah, there's none there now and none proposed. It's my understanding it's just to have extra, storage. And if we ever finish it off, we'll absolutely apply for a permit and talk to Tom about it and make sure it's not a bedroom.
Great. Tom Lee?
I agree with John's asking for the impermeable layer on that side when they strip out. Add that in there. Secondly, I know Tom is okay with your den, but if you can add on your existing layout plan on the den, add fourth bedroom in there, so it's clear in our documentations why there's a fourth bedroom in there.
Oh, just right, den/bedroom?
Correct.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay?
Any other comments, questions?
I had one other thing. On the way over, I asked, are they going to have a bulkhead on this to my engineer? And he says, oh, I think they just sent me a plan with a bulkhead on it in the back. It wouldn't affect your plan, but perhaps if I do a revised plan showing the mastic liner, I'd show the bulkhead in the back that would be further away. If the board is okay with that, I would like to add that to maybe another revised plan with a liner.
If it comes in for your permit, they'll just notate it.
Yeah.
That it wasn't.
Would happy to do a revised plan or
Yeah, and I think
for the permit.
Yeah, I think if you carry that liner out around the curve,
Yep.
it'll still protect that too, even if that bulkhead ends up right there. Any other comments, questions, board members?
Yep.
I would entertain a motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, that's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Ojala.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, the liner condition,
On the plan,
yeah,
revised
on the plan. So when they bring it in for their permit, it'll show a liner. And if he has the updated foundation plan showing the bulkhead, all the better.
Yep. And I'll note heavy mastic on the foundation for belts and suspenders. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. The next item was requested to be moved to the April 23rd, 2023. Entertain a motion to continue Michael Kenny representing Charles Tuttle to April 23rd meeting.
So move.
I have a motion, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's moved. Next item on the agenda, David Flaherty, engineer, and John Carey, owner of 24 Marston's Ave, Hyannis, map parcel 288-198. It's a 10,000 square foot parcel requesting a setback to property line variance to move leaching field off neighbor's property and onto owners. Good afternoon. Make sure that green light is on. Thank you so
How's that?
much.
For the record, Dave Flaherty, thank you very much for your time. This is the owner, John Carey. He's going to do most of the, Carney, I'm sorry. He's going to do most of the talking, but I just thought I had dropped off revised plans. You should have those in front of you. Thanks again, Sharon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. My name's John Carey. I'm a local resident here in Hyannis. This is a property I've been fixing up and trying to return to the housing stock here. I buy kind of dilapidated properties down here, and I kind of bring them back to market. The first one my fiance and I did was in Centerville. It was a house that burned down, and it was sat empty for 5 years. We renovated it and brought it back to the housing market, and now there's a family with 3 kids living there. The next one I'm doing is, well, this one, and then we're also working on, we bought a dilapidated school in Harwich, and we're trying to do 10 units of year-round housing. So what we're trying to do with this one is correct a septic issue. It's something I've been working on for about 6 months, trying to get a design that works. It's a tight lot, and this is, if the terminology is correct, is the maximum feasible compliance. Something we've had to deal with that I was, I guess, unaware of was when they did the original subdivision in 1953, the zoning law required a drainage easement to be put in for future use. Nothing's there, nothing's ever been there, but it does run through the kind of the where you'd want to put this septic system. So I worked with these guys, and they helped put together this plan that stays off the easement and complies the best we can. For it to work, we do need 3 variances, and then the 4th one is something I'm asking for because I'm going to be selling this back to a family, and a better looking system would be better for kids or people using the backyard. So we asked for a 1-foot variance to 4 feet down to groundwater, high groundwater. So that's kind of as much as I know. If you had any questions.
If I could add, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
Currently, the existing system for this dwelling is located on the property to the north. So the big impetus for this was to bring this system back entirely onto the property so that there could, and I think that the intent is to eventually develop a house on that northern lot. But of course, you don't want to have your septic system on another lot. Summer Lane, you see to the right, it's more or less a driveway, and it doesn't even go down that far. So I think that's why that's located. It's like a paper road at that point. And unfortunately, that drainage easement is impacting where we'd like to put the existing leach field without any variances to the property lines to the west and the east. So that's basically where we're coming from. We need variances to the drainage easement, a little bit to the property line, and we want to bring the entire system back onto the property.
Okay, thank you for that. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff?
There was a list of 4 items, Dave, that you received from the health inspector. Does this revised plan fix all those problems?
Yes, it did, sir.
Okay. Is this, so is this the reason for this is this to create another lot that wasn't, was this always one lot or 2 lots?
There's already a lot. When was that lot created, the one to the north?
2 lots, they've both been lots since the 50s. I own this one, I'm trying to bring my septic back on it.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Do you own the other one too?
I do not.
No.
Thank you for that, staff. Members of the board, comments, questions? I mean, typically for me, you know, where the rubber meets the road for me is that, you know, groundwater separation. I understand it's an adjusted groundwater, and it's about, you know, almost a 4-foot adjustment. Typically, when we see, you know, 4 foot, you know, my radar starts to peak up, and I start to think, you know, this is what it's all about, is, you know, getting more of that material underneath the system to get more of a filtration before it starts getting into potentially the groundwater in that area. So I've had problems in the past for me personally approving a 4-foot separation without a denitrification system, but I'm just one vote, so, but I wanted to put that out there that, you know, don't take it personally if I vote against this. You may have enough votes, I don't know, but
No, I certainly appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
I understand this is a better situation. Obviously, having a septic system on someone else's property, that existing SAS could be right on the adjusted groundwater elevation. And so, you know, this is getting it higher, and we're making things better over there, which is typically the goal. But it's just, you know, this is going to be in perpetuity for a while, so for me, I'd like to just stay consistent, you know, and telling people
sure.
I'd like to see at least a 5-foot separation.
I don't know if it's any remediation, but we are taking it out of the water protection overlay and bringing it out of it.
Yep, no, I noticed that. Again, you know, the difference is he'd like a flat yard, as much as possible for play, kids, things like that, and I understand that. If it doesn't get approved, all you got to do is jack the system up a foot. Yeah, you have a little bit of a lump in the backyard, and you know, you don't have to put a denitrification system in. If you're insistent on maintaining the 4 foot, then you know, for me personally, I'd want to see a denitrification system. But again, I'm just, you know, the one vote on here, but that's, you know, kind of my opinion of it. I do appreciate that this is making a situation better. This is creating more separation than it currently exists. So that was my only
Just one
comments on it.
last thing.
Sure, go ahead, Dave.
It's proposed the top of the SAS will be around 3 feet higher than the existing grade, so that's why we're, instead of 4 feet higher, it's 3 feet higher.
Right.
With a retaining wall. So-
Right, you're going to build that elevation up to the top of the retaining wall.
Correct, yeah.
Right. Any other comments, questions?
Have you considered a denitrification system?
Price was really the kind of issue there. But yeah, I talked to a couple different engineers regarding it, and it really didn't change much in terms of height or size. What it really did was, I think it lowered it a foot, but the cost went about $8,000 to $9,000 higher for the 2 people I talked to.
How much more? I'm sorry.
$8,000 to $9,000 for that additional aeration system. I actually had the specs on one that we're looking at, but it really cost was prohibitive there.
And the sewer's not planned for here?
It's phase 2, which is 7 to 14 years away based on the website. And I'll connect this, well, I won't own it, but I'm happy to sign something that would agree to connect, but it's a long ways off.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to obligate a buyer,
Okay.
you know, with variance, but
What, can we hear the two Toms' opinion on this?
Go ahead, Tom, I already gave mine, go ahead.
No, I think it's fine at this point in terms of the system. It's better than the existing systems. And, you know, if the public sewer is coming up, you know, then they just connect. I don't think that will make that much difference, you know. But that's my opinion.
We could have the other Tom make sure they connect. How's that?
well, everyone's going to be connecting within 6 months, so
Yeah,
if it's available, you got to connect within 6 months without a variance.
Right.
Any other, Tom, staff was
I
fine with it?
agree with Tom, it's phase two,
Okay.
and it's much more than, IA systems cost much more than that, as we know.
Right. Right.
Anyone else? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the project as, the variances as submitted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's two opposed, one opposed, voting. Congratulations, thank you.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Supervisor.
Next item on the agenda, Patrick McDowell, PKM Contractors, representing James Hannoosh, owner 35 Williams Path, West Barnstable, map parcel 111-033. It's a 1.08 acre parcel requesting minor setback variance of leaching field to property line right-of-way. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John. Good afternoon, Mr. Lee, everybody. Thank you very much for accepting my application for this hearing. In February, I had contracted with James Hannoosh. His parents had died, and a pretty straightforward septic system was to take place, gravity feed out of the dwelling, no variances. Upon starting the job, of course, we excavated, pumped, and removed the old system and set the tank to the existing grade off the existing pipe. We had to straighten the pipe out and put in a laser to the basement after we set it, because there were 45s before the tank, and the site was a mess. So upon doing that, we'd set the tank and found the pipe plumbing in the house to be only 1 foot off the basement floor. And I just couldn't understand how the engineer could have set these grades. And he didn't go in the basement, didn't record the proper elevations, and proceeded to engineer this plan. But my tank, I'd already committed to the tank. I put it in and hooked it up, and there were people living in the house. So we're a day out on that. We recognized this after the overdig. So we had the overdig inspection. We're hooked up. And I go in the basement, and they actually had a jeweler. It's a gorgeous house, very, very gorgeous, accessible basement with jewelry equipment and lathes and everything. And I pulled the cap on the pipe, put a laser in it, and I finally made sure it was perfect, and we got minimum pitch out of the house to the new tank, 6 feet down. So with that being said, I'm on the ragged edge of H10 components, but I had contacted Justin with all the emails and set the tank, and the grades will meet no more than 36 inches of cover over the tank, so we don't have a structural problem. But that doesn't help me with the leach field, so I crept the leach field down to the setbacks on the plan. They were holding the lines, the range lines, if you look on the plan, 16.9, 20.2. But the overlay on the plan is set to the pavement, not to the property line. So that was ire, but we enjoyed moving that because we got out of the hill, as you'll see in the packet. We followed minimum pitch out of the house, we followed minimum pitch out of the tank, minimum pitch out of the D-box. And to get the system in without a problem with 36-inch or better ground cover, we receded to the street. We ran from the hill. And we had mentioned this corresponding with Justin, and we shot it. And we have infringed on the lot line with septic stone, maybe 2 or 3 inches of it, but the structures are well inside the property. So knowing that it's a private right-of-way, knowing that there's no drainage, I applied for this variance because there's a multitude of problems with this plan. and I am trying very hard to accommodate this man selling his dead father's house. So I thought the fastest way, instead of snapping plumbing, screaming about containment walls that were never needed, and pump chamber really is needed, and we hit beautiful sand over in that area, and we had the town come out and look at it. I have all that correspondence. Justin's little guy came out and looked at it. We smoked a big hole right down in the middle of the belly, and it's beautiful coarse sand, probably 10 feet underneath the pavement. I did a test hole, but nothing recorded. But I had done a ton of work up there in the 80s, and I know the whole area. That is a streak of sand. But long story short, I'm requesting the setback easement on this particular situation for two reasons. There's an economic feasibility, this man's selling the house. There was an honest error on Justin's behalf, because I don't know how you miss 3 feet on a goddamn, on a septic pipe that's in a basement that's cleaner than most surgery, it's cleaner than most operating tables. The pipe's right there, everything's there, it's a polished basement. I don't know how that happens, but it happened. So I amended the situation there. I had excavated up to the plumbing's code and removed all the jury rig bends and stuff that had this 1,000-gallon tank, which was leaning backwards. Removed that, set the 1,500 in, and we did verify with a pipe laser right into the basement, a straight shot, perfect. So I could sleep. That was the end of that, and then we proceeded with the overdig. But in researching this a little bit further, Williams Path is still a private road. There is no drainage issues ever in there. This particular piece of property runs from not only the lot corner, the whole radius, they go all the way to High Street. They own that sliver of land. So they own the easement all the way to High Street. So I'm begging the board to please use some common sense. I'm having some problems with Justin because he seems to have turned his back on Mr. Hannoosh and me, and he's not responding to any of the pipe issues or any of the discovery that most practical applications meet. This never happens. But you do go out and do a job, you take your pipe. I don't go out and verify his work, but I wound up doing that. I did call him, I did do many things, but the tank was set, and this was a very nasty site. I mean, nasty. And I have given you all the pictures. I did due diligence, I removed all the concrete, I got the leach pit in a picture, fully removed, all the septic removed, all the bad overdig removed, and it was an extremely hard job. And this Mr. Hannoosh, the one that passed away, was kind of a cute guy. I knew him. And I took a shine to this job for that reason. But with that being said, I really hope that the board will look at this, mandate that Mr., whatever this kid's last name is, the engineer goes back and does his job, records the basement, records the location, the elevations, records the rises, records the finished grades, and does his job, because Mr. Hannoosh deserves that. And I paid for all the variances and everything here. The job is absolutely immaculate. There are encroachments all over this neighborhood in this buffer zone. There's stone walls going right up to the pavement. There's driveways going out into over these areas. This is 2 or 3 pieces of septic stone. This isn't a structure. This isn't, God forbid they had a earthquake and they had to dig it up. You're going to have septic stone. There's no physical structures in this road layout. And I believe this septic system serves the neighborhood better, definitely serves the eye candy. Who would want to look at a 3-foot, 4-foot wall? And he had the wall. I just don't know what he was doing. I think there was a bust because he's got his existing pipe going out at 114.5. He's got the top of the containment wall at 114.5, when in fact the pipe really went out at 111, or just a little bit north of it. So there's just a breakdown on all the elevations. The whole plan was garbage to begin with. And there was no justification to reinvent the wheel when we had, number one, we had a death. Number two, we had a tenant in there driving the owner crazy that he had to get rid of. There's a B&B something going And I had to get that tank in, John. I had to put the tank in. They were flushing, they were all in there. So I showed up at the job, and I looked, what the hell's that thing so deep? And that's how we started. But I had already started with the overdig. The tank was in. As you can see, it goes right up a hill. And the best solution, I believe, was to apply, if there was any other reason to not request this variance, the altercation is going to be either with Mr. Hannoosh and this engineer, he's going to involve pump systems, a raised wall, all this other stuff, or snap the plumbing up. I mean, you got to see this house. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous house. The rock walls go all the way out to the edge of Williams Path. I just don't see and he's actually moving it a little bit further away from the water wells. So it's further away from the drinking well here, guys. And all the other neighbors, I looked all up and down there. I talked with, I briefly mentioned to Danny about this. If we have to go out and this kid doesn't come back out and do his job, I'll have to talk to Mr. Hannoosh and get a real survey. All the covers at a grade, per first class. Do you have the pictures with all the loam seed? Mm-hmm. Okay, I have pictures too showing the concrete, and it's way inside of those walls, way inside. And again, I'm not looking for excuses for my location, but I believe PKM did due diligence in adapting a pretty major error on a plan that never, ever made any contact with reality here. None. There's no contact with reality on this job. And that's what I was dealing with. But the sad part is I didn't drag the engineer down there and stick his face in the hole and ask him what the hell he was doing. He didn't really want to hear too much about that. I don't think I'd want to hear it if I was 3 feet over the line either, but I'm not. I'm two pieces an inch and a half. That's all I'm really, and again, Mr. Hannoosh is trying to sell this house. He's a very good man, and it's a win-win. There is absolutely no utilities ever planned to go in that area. The curve is good, and they do own to High Road. They own to High Street. It's a corner. It's the lot's the boss of the neighborhood. So I'm not, there's no chance of anybody shooting a mole, grabbing a water main. There's no water up there, and I think I've talked the horse off the cliff here, but
Okay, thank you for that.
I will tell you, I'm really looking out for Mr. Hannoosh and the family.
Okay,
As far
thank
as
you.
the ego here, I think I've touched on that enough, but I was looking for solutions and not blame game.
Okay.
And I have all the documentation there. Tom, not this Tom, not Tom. Mr. McKay, yeah, you sent, when you sent me the heads up, that I was walking, kind of in foreign territory. I am in foreign territory. I don't usually do this, except for when I'm with Mr. Lee setting septic tanks 14 feet in groundwater. But the situation was very odd. And again, with the death in the family, I just didn't understand where a little bit of compassion was here. I mean, I just didn't understand why when you stuff a job like this and you miss by 3 feet and then degrade it and you're in mud. I mean, my God, you're in mud up to here. But the gods running down on us because we hit beautiful sand in that corner and the Board of Health saw it. I mean,
I was trying, in my emails, I was trying to figure out the reasons.
oh, yeah,
It's difficult to understand, but you're trying to get you're trying not to build a retaining wall, you're trying to get it lower into the ground, is that what you're
I
trying to do?
followed the flow line. The slope's like this, and the pipe was supposed to be way up 3 feet higher than it was. So when the septic tank was here, there was no need. It just flowed down. So in doing so, I just barely meet 36 inches on that septic tank. Another half a foot, and we're out to H20. And Jim ain't gonna be too happy about that. But we did do that, and that's all measurable.
I apologize, I was out of order. Go ahead.
The diffusers, everything was concrete riser. And no greater than 2 feet, and the covers are right there.
Okay,
So
thank you for that. I think we get the gist of it.
and
This
Jim-
is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Come forward and just identify yourself and sign in, or if there's no sign in, just let Sharon know your name and address. You just come to the mic, please, so it gets recorded and people at home that are watching.
Hi, my name is Ellie Johnson. I live at 61 Williams Path in West Barnstable. and I'm an abutter.
Do you want to speak against the mic? Is your mic on?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Is that better? So I am a butter, and we're aware of the former Hannoosh family passing, and that was a couple of years ago. And then this property was inherited by the son, who ended up turning it into a verbo and renting it at $500 and something a night. So we had various issues with that and so forth and so on. There were a lot of things going on in the property that previously weren't permitted. So we're concerned because this came forward and we're seeing it again as another, let me do this first and I'll ask for forgiveness later situation. Williams Path is private. I spoke with David Poninen from the fire department, West Barnstable Fire Department. We have some issues there in terms of the width of Williams Path. So my concerns and other people's concerns are the amount of, I'm seeing today, a load of sand covering half of the street that's coming from that property. It needs a retaining wall, in my opinion. But I'm not sure that that will be enough. Maybe it needs to be relocated to another part of the property. I'm not sure. But I think it could be a hindrance because they want to put a pool in the backyard, so that could all be a problem. So the neighborhood is kind of tired of this situation and so forth and so on. It's taken a lot out of all of us in terms of having strangers in and out of the neighborhood, trucks in and out of the neighborhood, added traffic, so forth and so on. The previous owners were trying to operate a business out of the property, and we're a residential neighborhood. We're not zoned for business, and so that had to come before the board before, in terms of, and they were manufacturing metal canes, and we're on wells in Williams Path. That's our drinking water. So this has caused a problem in the neighborhood. We have a bunch of us that have been there for over 36 years. We raised our family there. We've been involved in the community and so forth and so on. And to have someone come in and make all these changes and then ask for all these variances, we followed the rules. We try to.
Just to keep you on point here as far
Right.
as what's before us, the board, okay?
Right.
If this septic system, the way it is in the ground right now, was about, from what I can scale, about 17 inches on one end, he wouldn't be before us because he'd be within the layout of the town. So the discussions about how the home's being used has nothing really before us.
Okay.
What's before us is that if you feel as though us granting this variance with that 17-inch incursion into the right-of-way, which is still not outside of their property, but it's just, you have a layout, a right-of-way for utilities, future drainage, anything that might be this line along the edge of the plan, that 10-foot buffer is where that you would have rights to put that drainage as if everybody in the neighborhood decided to put, water in there and get off the wells or something like that. So if you could speak to like how this variance would impact the location of the system in that sense, that's what we're here to decide, whether the property's being used as a Airbnb, Verbo, whether he did metal working there. It's really not our purview. It's not what's before us, so.
Okay, well, let me just say this in terms of we might be faced with, according to what Dave Parnanen said at the widening that road in terms of to accommodate the fire trucks and so forth and so on. We already have utilities in there. We have electric, all underground. We have gas pipes in there. And in fact, I have two, one to accommodate my generator. And we have other internet. So we already have those utilities present on the road. What's going to happen if there's a problem with this septic system? That's my concern. What do we do? How do we live with this?
Okay.
Those are my concern and concerns of the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you very much. If there's anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Town staff?
Okay, one of the questions on the exam, when an installer takes our exam, every installer in town has to take an exam before they are licensed. One of the questions on the exam is if there's an issue in the field, who do you contact before you install that septic system? The answer is the engineer and the Board of Health. This applicant failed to contact the engineer or the Board of Health before he went ahead and installed the system, and it doesn't meet the plan, both in distance from the property line and depth. I'm not sure if he even has 4 feet above the bottom of the test hole, because we don't have that information on the plan. The plan's not stamped by an engineer. I'm talking about the as-built plan. It's also not stamped by a land surveyor. So those are the issues that I have, that the system should be installed in accordance with the plan. If the engineer has to redesign the plan because according to the contractor, it couldn't be built that way, then we need to talk to that engineer directly. And right now, we have no communication with the engineer. He's not at this meeting. He apparently doesn't want to be a part of this meeting. That's all I have. Thank you.
Members of the board, comments or questions? Tom Lee? Go ahead, Tom
Someone
Lee.
has a question first.
I want to hear Tom.
Huh?
As an engineer, a design engineer, if someone called me and said, I screw up in terms of the invert from the pipe from the basement out, I'll be the first one to the basement to look at it. What is the problem with my design? Too bad this engineer did not go out to the site and trying to verify or correct the problems. That is tremendous in terms of how this design a septic system to make it work. Secondly, when you locating the septic tank and trying to put the laser into the field and put the direction in, and you are knowing that you will be in the roadway, the first thing I would call too is the engineer. Where is my stakes? Where is my property line? Should I move it, or how do I put the system so that it's inside my property? So those are the questions that need to be answered, and doesn't seem to be answered.
When
There's
do
no
I
answer
answer?
there.
When do
Okay.
I answer these questions?
Hold on.
Okay.
Thank you.
So those are difficult questions because now you end up being that, yes, your structure is inside your property line. You only have maybe 17 inches of the intrusions into the right-of-way with the sand stuff. It may be minimum because you will not affecting your structure leaching field-wise. But that's my initial comment. But for the as-built plan without the engineering stamp, I would never accept it. So,
I got this engineer stamp right here with a permanent.
Paul, did you have comment or question?
No, I wanted to hear Tom, and I have comments on, about the plan. Usually when we get a plan, we get a plan of the room plan, also floor plans. And I called the fire department in West Barnstable this morning, and I did find out that these are all wells, but there's no indication of where the wells are on the plan. Now, that's got nothing to do with what you've been talking about here, but I don't know why, the plan, under our rules.
Well, I think the plan that was submitted for a permit has all that information on it. This was just an as-built plan
Right.
that they did just to show us how much of the system as it was installed is encroaching over the right-of-way, the
So you
10-foot
take it
layout.
for granted then that the wells are far enough away from.
Well, they already, it had, the permit the permit to install this system was already issued. So the plans were submitted with
So
the
does
well
Tom have
locations
that
of.
plan?
Yeah, it was approved by the health inspector, was stamped by an engineer, it met all the criteria. But what we asked for on the revised plan was an engineered plan with a land surveyor. We don't know if that's correct on this plan. It's not stamped by anyone. That was my point.
yeah.
We don't know where if that property line is. It says right on this plan, it looks like the bound was was moved. So we don't know if that's the property line or not.
And there's no floor plan either on this, so it wouldn't be on this either.
Patrick, the plan that we got that shows like a yellow highlighted area of where it was supposed to go, who did this?
Can I speak now?
Yep.
Okay, first of all, I have all the correspondence from the engineer and the town in copies. So, Tom, I did talk to the town of Barnstable, I did talk to Justin, word for word, verbatim, about this issue, once the tank was in, though.
Who's Justin?
Justin's the engineer.
Okay, so the engineer was notified that there was a 3-foot
Yes, and I
discrepancy.
have detailed discussions in text.
Who did this plan that shows where?
Justin.
He did this. So
Yes.
he did this,
And then he bailed, he didn't follow up anymore, and I had talked, and then I realized Mr. Hannoosh,
and then he
I'd
did it,
like-
he did it based on the as-built that was, the as-built sketch that was
sent his
done in the
field crew,
field?
his sent his field crew out with a GPS.
He shot
with
it
satellite,
before it was backfilled.
Shot elevation and location, and we were done. And I gave him a scoop of sand during the overdig. So I did have followed protocol to the spec. I talked to the town of Barnstable. I have the text right here. I talked to Justin. I have an email trail that shows the color of the situation going the rabbit hole. And he told me he was not going to accommodate his customer. So what do? I approved, I went to the town. Now, when you follow as much as you can, if I followed this plan, I'd be right off a cliff. We wouldn't have this, this is a totally incompetent plan, totally.
Well, typically, the logistics-wise, the first thing you're doing when you show up on a site is you got to pump the existing tank in the
That's right.
existing pit.
That's
So if you're pumping the existing tank, the crew is there.
That's right.
And they're looking down and they're seeing a tank that's 4 feet below grade, but yet the plan is showing an existing pipe coming out at what you said was, 112?
I couldn't get in the house today, but right now on Justin shot, the tank going in, we're down around 111.
Right, so top of foundation is 117. So
Yeah.
he did a design based on an assumption that it was at like, what, 115 to top a
I
pipe?
think he's
Or
calling
bottom of pipe?
114. He's
One-
calling for 3 foot down.
Okay, so he originally thought the pipe was coming out, whether he went in and verified it or just did it. I'm not going to speak for him, let him answer that if he ever gets involved in this. But yeah, if you've got top of foundation at 117, you've got a design outlet pipe from the foundation that's supposed to be at 114, 3 feet down. You show up and it's closer to 111. Invert out 110.63. So that discrepancy right there, I mean, that's a problem right
Well-
off the bat. So when you first contacted him, where were you at in the project? Like, had you already,
Overdig inspection. We had, like you said, we had removed the cover, set up the laser on the inlet tee, assuming the plan had something to do with the existing piping and existing elevations.
so seeing
That's
that,
the way we did, we
seeing
did.
that discrepancy, you let the engineer know
I didn't see
immediately?
it. No, I sent my guys out, verify the pipe, set the tank, 5-foot cut for 1,500, next to the 1,000. So we were able to set the 1,500 in right next to the 1,000, in a straight line with the house. Thank God we did, because the pipe came out of the house, 45 over, went upside, I was going uphill into the tank. So it was a pretty rough job.
So you set the tank based on the plan,
I set the tank based on the pipe coming out of the house.
knowing that it was 3 feet lower than,
No, I didn't. No, I
but you had to have known it if you set the tank to accommodate the pipe, then you lowered the tank by 3 feet.
I didn't check the benchmark on the job. I did not check this engineer's, I didn't circle check, but I will have Danny Ojala go through this thing with a fine tooth comb, because I think this is going to end badly for Justin.
Well,
First of all,
if
he
he's
didn't-
licensed, he's got an error and omissions policy, and this is clearly an error and omission.
He doesn't have a policy.
To have a stamp in Massachusetts, you have to.
He doesn't have one, John.
Isn't that true, Tom? Don't you, in order to have a
He doesn't.
current-
That's what Hannoosh is looking for.
current stamp, you have to have a errors and omissions policy?
No, I think he has a stamp.
He just has a stamp. But
I think he has a stamp in Massachusetts.
I just wanted to clarify if there's any misunderstanding. we were not, the health inspector discovered this error on the final inspection. No one called us first to tell us you're going to see a difference in plan when you go out there. We were called to inspect it. She went out and she discovered it was in the wrong location. And that's why we're here today. It's after the fact. The variance is after the fact. It should have been installed where it was designed, if that's possible.
So do you have some
I
communicated
have all the
verification of, do you have an email, copy of the
John,
emails
I have
and the date of
emails from the
installation?
inspectors, I have the emails from the engineers. I did not discover this error until we were down to the overdig inspection. I started shooting the grades. The grades for the top of the field matched the hot mix. That's the first indication. I'm driving down the road. My guys set the job up the way we've done many of them, but we've never had a pipe missing 3 feet.
So you set the tank
Yep.
based on what elevation? The pipe or the
pipe.
the
and-
datum on the
and
plan?
The pipe,
pipe.
coming out of the house. And we had to hustle because they had 13 people running in and out of the house flushing the toilet.
It's irrelevant, but I mean, I'm talking about, so I'm trying to determine at what point in time the error was noticed and when you proceeded to
When I drove up the
to
road, John, and I
change.
saw the 1,500 and the outlet was only about a foot above the pavement down in that bank, and I'm looking right there, I said, something's a bust here. So I went in the house. That's, I called Hannoosh the next day, I had to get in the house.
So you ran the pipe, but you hadn't made the connection yet?
No, we hooked up the tank that day, that morning.
Yeah, I'm still confused with the logistics of this, Pat. So you've got an existing 1,000-gallon tank.
Correct.
That's hooked up, the elevation, which is 3 feet lower than the plan called for. You dug your new 1,500-gallon
Next
tank
to it.
right next to it.
Right next to it. Set it to the same grade.
And you set that elevation
same grade.
based on the pipe or the datum on the plan?
I set
elevation on the
I
plan.
set it to the existing field conditions, assuming,
Which is what? When
Assuming-
you say existing field conditions, the pipe?
That's correct.
The outlet pipe from the foundation?
that's correct.
And you, at that point, that should have triggered that this is 3 feet off?
No, it shouldn't.
Absolutely it
Did
should,
you look
because
at the
now your
grading?
tank is 3 feet
Okay.
deeper.
Well, let's just.
From the plan.
I'm glad you hit on that, because let's visit that, John.
Mm-hmm.
Let's visit that. The grading shows 115 going over this leach field. You see that on the plan?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, how does that possibly work with the elevation schedule up top at 114.5 for the inlet? Coming out of the house, what are we gonna grade? We're gonna bust the pipe with the bulldozer when we're grading? I mean, come on. You know you got that much precast over the top of an inlet pipe. Was the concrete gonna stick out of the ground?
Well, if you've got,
This guy did not even correlate the grading to the existing pipe conditions.
if you've got an existing topo going through the field at 115,
That's what he's
That's-
proposing, John. The existing topo right now is back to within a quarter of an inch of what was there before the job started.
D-
It's exactly the same as it was now.
dotted line is existing on
Yes,
topo.
Underneath. But he's calling for.
115 dotted line goes right through the middle of where the system was supposed to go.
Yes, and he's calling that, but look at the schedule up top for the outlet.
Right.
114.5 for the pipe. So
Oh,
that
we
puts
don't-
your tank.
I
that
don't
puts your
have,
tank-
I don't have the original plan. They just gave us the as-built.
Yeah, but we don't have that design plan. All we have is this plan.
That's the as-built.
Correct. That's all I have.
This is what we put the
Okay.
system into. And it's just, it's very, very tough to swallow.
But the thing though is,
Can I ask a question?
this is a lot more complicated than having a hearing here and trying to decide what is the proper way to do it, because this would take time to understand what that is, and we may have a discussion with Justin of how and why.
Well, he was hoping to sell his house next week.
Okay.
No, they can still sell the house. They just put it, cost of the
Conditions.
septic in a escrow account until it's resolved.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
And I will admit, most of this is beyond me, but when stuff doesn't make sense, why wouldn't you just stop?
Well, that's what,
But you didn't stop, you put it in, right?
We put it in and we.
No, but I mean, stop. Is that an unreasonable thing to
It's
do?
not unreasonable to stop and call the Board of Health.
Well, technically,
You didn't call
in
for
my
inspection?
mind, technically, in my mind is, when you dig up the existing tank, you put a new tank in, at least you got some, at least you got some place to waste your wastewater stuff with the new tank. Then you figure out what to do next. Otherwise, how are you going to, deal with the existing wastewater stuff? I mean, normally, we put the new tank in, and then you can figure out what is the leaching field, a couple of days' work to finish that piece off. That's how we normally do it.
So, to bottom line it, though, I understand the process didn't go the way anyone would have liked. It's technically too complicated for lay people to understand. But the bottom line is, we're talking about 17 inches?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to also get to the
think
point,
it's
is
7
that if this,
7 inches?
7 inches, stone.
if this system was
Is there another
if this
question?
system was rotated,
Yeah.
Or moves up north.
yeah,
Then
then
you're all
it's-
set.
he doesn't need Board of Health for nothing. Everything's within his
It was
rights.
just rotated, as we see on the plans, like 2 degrees. We wouldn't need it.
Right.
Yeah.
But to
It'd be
fix
too
it,
deep.
what would it cost?
Well,
It'd be too deep if you rotated it, because the grade,
Okay.
you're dealing with a side slope. It'd be 4, 5 feet deep.
So we either approve the 17 inches or 7 inches, 17 inches. I don't think that makes too much of a difference.
17 or 7?
It's 7, it's right on the plan, and again, the structure, the concrete, is not anywhere near the property line.
Or
It's-
you have to redig
Do you see that, John?
leaching
There's,
field.
I mean, it's a 20 scale. Our plan doesn't show, but it's a 20 scale, and our plan shows, like, you look at it real close, it's a teeny little bit more than one line, which represents 1 foot in a 20-foot scale.
yeah, and
So,
the concrete's way inside of that, and again, I
I understand
I
this.
gave you pictures.
Yeah, no, the
where
Concrete's way inside of it.
With the way the eagle flies, there's all kinds of decorations and big rock walls and everything far beyond the septic. In the parallel of the
In that
system.
right-of-way area.
In the right-of-way area. I mean, Mr. Hannoosh did all kinds of teardrop, and he owns all the way to High Road.
hold on 1 second. Would you like to add something else, please?
I'm not sure if this will help.
You have to come to the mic and speak, please, because it's got to be recorded and logged in.
I'm not sure if this will,
Hold on till you get to the mic, please. Thank you.
I'm not sure if this will help, but I have the original certified plot plan for 35 Williams Path and also the septic. So
You have that?
you have that all?
Well,
Okay,
his
wasn't
original
sure.
plan that the Board of Health approved
Okay.
had all that information on
This
it.
is for the original owner, Vilnius Ezrins. This is about with the
Yeah,
prior,
that system's gone. That was
Yeah.
removed.
Yeah.
okay.
This is about the new system.
Yeah, I understand that, but I was wondering if you could glean anything in terms of what they have for elevations and so forth in the back, what they were.
Well,
I'm
it's,
happy to
it's,
live,
the engineer put on his plan estimated
yeah,
invert elevation,
Mm-hmm.
so he was clearly wrong.
okay.
But that's, neither here nor there
Well,
at
this is what
point.
we're trying to get to,
Well, it
whether
is
it's
here or there.
7 inches or 17 inches or so forth and so on. So I'm a lay person, but I know that plans should be certified, and if there's a problem, someone should be
the-
called before.
Yeah, the plan
They
was.
proceed.
The permit was issued by on a certified plan. They just provided us with an as-built of what they did now that doesn't have a stamp on it. That's the concern. that
Mm-hmm. My
he does, is
concern,
that
too.
There's no verification that an engineer was willing to stamp, so we're kind of a little bit in the dark with that. But, that's part of what we can require is a certified plot plan as-built before we can,
So
before we.
technically, there is
It could be
nothing-
one of the conditions.
There's nothing certified for what is existing now on the property, correct?
A certified as-built plan? No, that's not what's
Okay,
required.
so I want to bring it back to my neighbors so that they know as well, too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I had talked
Sure, go ahead, Pat.
in depth with the Board of Health, and I followed protocol as they instructed me, and have the engineer make the changes and resubmit the plan. That's what he did. He knows, but he did not acknowledge that he needed to change his inlets or anything on the grading. And I tried and accommodate this owner to sell his house. I dealt with Catherine, I didn't deal with Tom. I dealt with Justin's kid in the field. He's very accommodating. Justin's been a very good engineer on other jobs, but this one, I don't know if what the breakdown was, but
Human nature is when you make a mistake, you don't want to, necessarily fess up to it.
It was a
But,
horrible-
the closing is going to happen no matter what, because they can put the money in escrow. So that's not really a factor. If they have a closing lined up, it can still happen. They just have to put money in escrow. If the board's will is not to issue the variance and the certificate of compliance does not get issued, the bank will still close with a letter of 120%, 150% of the cost, which would be your estimate from the original cost of the septic, because they'll hold all of that.
I gave them
just in
back the
case.
money.
Yeah, I mean, just in case. I mean, if the board says, no, we're not going to grant the variance, you got to go out there, you got to dig up the leaching, you got to rotate it, you got to pull the components out, you got to put H20 components in instead, and that cost there will be paid out of the 150% because the engineer screwed up, and then the homeowner, who I'm assuming hired the engineer, has to go after the engineer for errors and omissions.
I would hope that the board considers economic feasibility and practical knowledge in regards to this situation, because it was a straightforward gravity system in a nasty clay mess. The existing system was heinous.
It's irrelevant at this point.
But we're trying to make a better life here.
It comes down to two questions. One, we grant the variance and we encroach in the right-of-way, or we don't grant it and you have to pick the leaching up, move it, rotate it, reset it, and if it ends up deeper than H10 is capable of carrying, you'll have to upgrade the units to H20, write all that cost up and submit it to the owner as a change order because the engineering was wrong. The homeowner goes after the engineering for the problems.
I would hope common sense would prevail in this particular case.
I understand, but,
I
we have a right-of-way
thank you.
that, we have people that are disputing the right-of-way, and so then, as a board, sometimes, we look at it and say, they have a right to that right-of-way and not have it encroached upon, and, they have a reasonable expectation that the right-of-way won't be encroached upon unless it's absolutely necessary. And is this absolutely necessary, or does the homeowner take some of his proceeds from the sale to compensate you for the mistake that the engineer made? That's kind of...
I do ask that the board considers looking at that as-built as tight as possible, because it's just stone. It's a few pieces of stone. We put stone in streets all the time, drainage.
Totally get it, totally
Yeah,
get it.
and the elevation actually works better, John. The yard is gorgeous. We don't have a containment wall. We don't have an H20 situation.
I was there 3 hours ago, I understand. I saw the whole thing.
All right, and I'm saying...
Any other members of the board, comments or questions? Anyone want to, Tom, Lee?
No, I
have a
just
comment or
want
question?
I just want to answer Dan's questions. When you have just this stone, if 7 inches of stone
Yes.
in the right-of-way, I don't think it would affect the performance of the leaching system. That's my thinking in terms of looking at that. If you look at the square area and all that.
So you're saying you could actually remove that 7-inch stone, it would still function fine?
Right.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like that much of an impact on the right-of-way.
I'll entertain a motion if someone wants to make a motion.
Well, I would make a motion to approve the variance.
We have a motion. Anyone second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the variance as applied for. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passes 3-2. Congratulations.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I think you made a good decision. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda, septic deadline extension. Mark Chasson, purchaser of 293 Riverview Lane, Centerville, map parcel 228-188. This is a .34 acre parcel, failed septic in Phase 1 of sewer plan, requesting extension of deadline to repair until sewer is available. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, thank you.
So why don't you give us the rationale?
My wife and I are buying a home in Centerville. We live in Barnstable Village. We're looking down the road maybe, 6 months, maybe a year, that we could either transition to the smaller home in Centerville and live there ourselves. I'm 75. And, or we would sell it to our youngest son, who's a Barnstable cop. That's our plan. We expect our time to take no more than 6-7 months to renovate the house. It's a 3-bedroom now. It's going to remain a 3-bedroom. I'm new at this, so forgive me. And I guess we're just waiting out when town sewage come. After speaking with Kelly Colopy, it sounds like the start date for that Phase 1 location is 2027. And like probably most of the people in the community, we hate like hell to build a brand-new septic system and then hand over another $10,000 or $15,000 in 3 years. I guess that's the long and the short of it, right? So it's going to be a primary home, either for me, probably not, probably for my son. The bedrooms, again, are not going to be expanded. I've got another son who I'm hoping is going to live there, so there really should be no more than 2, never more than 3 people. It's been suggested possibly we could get away if we could pump this thing more regularly. It was an older single woman who had lived there for, I think, over 20 years, if I'm not mistaken. And how regularly it's been pumped, I don't know, But we like to alleviate the financial pain of having to do something twice. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you very much for that. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public who'd like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff?
Staff has no objections, and we have written confirmation from Kelly at DPW that sewer, it's in Phase 1. Sewer connection will be available sometime in 2030, so 6 more years. With only 2 people living in the house, it shouldn't just require pumping as needed. The system failed inspection because the leaching pit inlet pipe, there was a liquid level observed in the leaching pit above the inlet pipe. So that is concerning, so just keep the system pumped on a regular basis. That's all I have. Thank you.
And for the first 6 months, we're really going to be there in a construction capacity. My old man was a builder. I'm not, but I know how to build. And we're not going to change the perimeter. And again, we're not increasing any bedroom size. And
Okay,
so
thank you for that.
That's where we are.
Members of the board, comments or questions?
Question.
Sure.
John, when you have a pit like that, one pit, why don't people take the cover off and buy a product that's approved by the state, like septic scrub, and punch some holes in the bottom of the pit and put in a couple of cans of containers of septic scrub? That seems to work.
Well, my personal experience is not too many of those products work on the long term, and that's just, you'll get an instant drop, but then, the things you're putting in there, I'm not a big fan of.
Well, I only know of one down in Hyannis, a friend of mine, and it's 7 years later, it's still working.
Yeah, I think the onus is on the homeowner. We are providing a time. We understand that the system, if there was sewer 20 years away, the obligation would be to upgrade this with the septic system within 6 months. So,
And we understand the necessity of a seasonal pump, 4 times a year,
sure,
just to make sure.
it's going to be more than a seasonal thing. It's going to be, you just have to keep an eye on it.
Okay.
My recommendation would be, for ease, is to bring the leaching pit cover to grade, maybe put a, cheap metal cover on it, or just have the concrete cover within a couple inches, scrape off the soil and just pop it open every now and then and go out and look.
Yeah.
Or just, kind of gauge it once you're living there full time, because obviously the last thing we want to do is have the stuff, backfilling into the foundation or making hydraulic failure and having it exposed to the surface of the groundwater. So the onus is on the homeowner, to maintain your system. so that, you're not before us again from a complaint from a neighbor or something, and at that time, we may have to force you to upgrade the system, even if sewer is only a couple of years away, and nobody wants that expense. So the board has been trying to understand the financial aspect of making someone put in a brand-new system, and then 4 or 5 years later have to put in a sewer connection. So we're trying to balance everything, and I think this is a balance. So it's just keep an eye on it, don't let it run into hydraulic failure, don't let it, bubble up to the surface, pump it 2-3 times, whatever times a year you need to, based on use. The house could have had a leaky toilet when they did the inspection. I've seen that in my career. I've seen a single, woman living in a home and went out and did the inspection, and she's like, I can't imagine the system's failed. And I'm like, well, everything's failed. I go in the house, and she was hard of hearing, and you could hear water running constantly. I'm like, ma'am, do you know your toilet's running? She's like, I can't hear anything.
I have buzzing going on.
Yeah, I fixed the toilet for her. A week later, we went back out, and the water level had dropped 2 feet. I mean, so there's things that might be causing it. So you never know what condition it was under when the inspection is done or what caused it to be.
Can I ask one question, a point of interest? I do want my son to buy this in about 6 months. Will he have to come back and do this?
No, the extension is granted to the property.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Not to the owner. So he'll have the same rights under the extension and same obligations under the extension, so.
Okay, great.
And, if the bank requires another inspection, and it fails again, maybe it doesn't
bank
fail, and
insists, right.
it's, after resting for a little bit, the system, doesn't fail, but that's down the road. So,
Can I just make one comment?
Sure.
Paul, the chemical that we use is approved by the DEP, and it's good for only temporarily. You have to continuously adding the chemical to dissolve the black buildup
Yeah,
in
but
the
that's
pit.
better than pumping,
Well, yes or no?
if it works.
Yeah, but it's expensive too. It's not cheap. It's not $10. It's over 100 something. Okay.
For the little 1 gallon bottle.
Yeah. So compare that versus the pumping cost, $200-300. So, I'd rather have the volume than relying on the chemical. Sometimes it may not work. Then you still have to pump. So it's not
All right, just
one
an
solution to
idea.
fix all.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, member of the boards? Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I need a motion.
Motion to approve.
Move
I have a motion to approve in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Congratulations, good luck going forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your advice, too.
Next item on the agenda is a temporary food event permit. Zavia Empey, representing the pop-up Main Street Cape Cod event to be held at 278 Main Street, Hyannis, map parcel 327-099, on Saturday, April 6th, from 2 to 6 p.m., with a rain date of Sunday, April 7th. At the same time, the menu will be jerk chicken wings, jerk pork, steamed vegetable, potato salad, and bean stew. Currently, one vendor, Z Eats.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zavia.
Welcome. Give us the rationale for this.
Okay, so on April 6th, we are launching Pop-Up Street Cape Cod, which is a series of pop-ups promoting art and food. This particular event will have art vendors, and myself will be serving food. I am Safe Serve certified. I have my allergy certificate as well. ServSafe, thank you. Thank you for the correction, yes. I am not sure how to do this. This is my first time, so.
That's all we need is basic information. Thank you so much. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public that would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff?
We have no objections.
Thank you for that, staff. Members of the board, any comments or questions?
Nice menu.
Thank you. You're welcome to join us.
No comments or questions? I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Have a great event.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, the pool variance. Nikki Hilton, representing Everleigh Cape Cod, 265 Communication Way, Barnstable. map parcel 314-044, requesting variance to allow opening of the pool without lifeguards. Pool is 4 foot deep and no children at pool. Good
Hi.
afternoon.
Firstly, I want to make a correction. I'm actually Heather Anderson. Nikki Hilton is the corporate out of North Carolina. I either messed it up on I was the applicant and she, it's me. I'm here. I am management over at Everleigh, Cape Cod, and I do understand there was a history there. And I have read through the history as well as experienced it. The staff that you had issues with in years past, I'm sorry, not the staff, the pool issues that were, we'll say, not up to par in 2022, mostly beginning of 2023, everyone that worked at the facility at that point was let go, literally a clean slate. They brought myself in. I ran a business on Cape Cod for 20 years, a local business that had 2 pools, an indoor pool and an outdoor pool. I also am CPR certified. I teach pool aerobics. I teach all types of health and wellness activities. I'm on the management staff there, and anyone who works there now was not there during that time. We do have a maintenance supervisor that is, I believe I supplied you with the information on the application, that he is pool operator certified. I think that's the right way to phrase it. As well as the company is more than willing to pay for the other 2 maintenance people on staff to get that certification if deemed necessary. We also do have that outside company that is responsible for all the testing. And to my knowledge, I began work there August of 2023, and I worked in the pool with the residents. It is only 4 feet deep. The average age of our residents is between 70 and 75. They're not swimming. They're standing and chatting. Unless I'm making them exercise. Other than that, there's no laps being swim, and there's really not much activity going on out there. The expense of the lifeguards that, the company had contracted an outside company to bring them in, and what I spent a lot of time out there last season. We were granted an extension and open, I think, through September. The pool was pristine, and I don't believe there's been any kind of missteps since the new management team has taken over. I've been on Cape Cod since 1989 and running businesses, like I said, in this vein, and very familiar with the pool. And it was funny because Tom had handed me when I came in the potential, if there was a variance, that you might request a certified swimmer. And it's right before I left the building, I said I should take a picture of my CPR certification. So I did bring a copy. I'm actually qualified and was, when I ran the Bornstein's pools, to be a qualified swimmer, if that's what I think that's what it's called, a qualified swimmer, if that was necessary. I'm hoping it wouldn't even come to that. Honestly, I live on the property, so I know I don't work 24 hours, but I am available to the residents during that time. And I can say that, I'm a very thorough person, and I do not see any negatives. I mean, the lifeguards that we had them in the past, I was constantly having to seek them out. They're either late or they're not there. It impedes the business, honestly. And I personally would prefer to be in charge and responsible for anything pool related than having somebody that I don't know well out there watching the residents. But like I said, there is no swimming really going on out there. It's a 4 feet deep. It's a social gathering, spot where the knitting club sits and chats when it's hot. There's just not a lot of activity out there, and the staff we have, the new maintenance supervisor is wonderful, has made several upgrades, and it's a fully enclosed. You can't get in without a key fob, and it's locked. I sent pictures, I think, in their package as well. I mean, if you have any additional questions, I know I kind of over-informed you in the packet.
No, that's it. Thank you. This is a public hearing. If there's any members of the public who would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Staff?
The information that I emailed the board was information about previous violations, and I was not aware that the staff or the management is now no longer there that caused these, that did not properly run the pool in the past. So that wipes out pretty much those comments, correct?
Correct.
The only comment I have is we have a Board of Health policy that requires lifeguards if there's more than 90 units. That's the policy that you adopted in 2020. Before that, it was 75 in 2018, and before that, it was 50, and before that, it was not a lot. You had to have either qualified swimmer or lifeguard. So you, over the years, you've increased the numbers for the maximum cap at the request of hotel owners in the past. So those are my comments. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
May I say something? No?
No,
Okay.
hold on a second. Let the board speak first. Any members of the board, comments or questions?
Just,
Dr. Gogol?
I saw the email that you sent earlier, and so as far as I'm concerned, the number that we put on it is somewhat arbitrary, which is why it kept changing. But the other concerns I thought were real valid and really a source of concern as to what had happened before. You're comfortable that with the changes that you'd give it a shot, that you'd be okay with that?
You're asking to continue with the progression and the increases? You're saying?
No, I'm saying put the number of units aside.
Okay. Oh, the other conditions?
The other conditions were what really kind of caught my attention, that there was cloudy water and that it was, I mean, it was clearly not maintained well.
How about
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And so what I'm asking is, given the changes in staffing, are you comfortable, and would you guys be going out
Yes.
periodically doing spot inspections anyway, so that if we're wrong,
Yes.
it would get caught quickly?
And we hope that everything will, there will no longer be any violations. That's our goal, is to gain compliance, not to penalize people.
Right.
So we're hoping that the violations will be corrected and remain uncorrected.
So, Tom, you don't agree with your inspector's recommendation of a complete, she says she recommends a complete 2024 season, that they show that they will comply with all state and local requirements before even considering any kind of variance?
Well, that's an idea. That's a suggestion from
Well,
staff.
that's what she suggests.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I think that's.
I don't disagree with that suggestion. Perhaps that's a good idea. Maybe have a qualified swimmer for 1 year and then have them come back. And that's a suggestion that you could consider. But I don't disagree with it.
This,
She says about an aging elderly population. Being part of that, I can understand.
I mean, seconds do count if someone is if there's no one there to watch and someone is underwater. You don't have time to wait for an ambulance. You need someone to jump in. Seconds do count. So that's why we've always advocated for at least a qualified swimmer on site. At the pool, not on site, but at the pool site. And I know, Dr. Guadagnoli, you've traveled at hotels all over the country, and there's usually a sign that says no lifeguard on duty. But that's our position. That's all I have. Thank you.
I mean, I understand the verbiage may not reflect it, but my opinion on unit numbers was always, in my mind, was a public place, a hotel or something where the public's invited. These are all private units.
Exactly.
This is private
And-
property. This is private pool. I mean,
Yes, and there's many that don't come out. We have a large
I mean,
population that don't.
Yeah, to me, the spirit of the rule was, protecting the public, like from a hotel that it's open to the public or whoever's staying at the hotel, whereas this is a private residence, whether it's one
Exactly.
unit or 100 units, it's a private residence, it's a private pool, only the residents are allowed to swim in it. And, there's risk in everything we do in life.
Yes.
So, I wasn't, to me, an apartment complex, that's just and it's, I mean, you can see from the pictures, it has a gated key, you have to punch in a code to get in. It's not like,
Yes.
people are just wandering in and swimming at leisure. So
Right.
to the spirit of the ordinance, me personally, I wouldn't look at private property or condo associations or apartment complexes as open to the public and requiring a lifeguard.
The state code defines public pools and semi-public pools, and condominiums, apartments, in motels are all considered semi-public. A YMCA pool is a public pool.
Right.
We don't even allow children in the pool. This is a 55-plus community.
Right.
Very inactive, unfortunately.
So grandchildren can't come to the pool?
No, we don't have children in the pool.
So just to clarify, so where are we at? Are you willing to take Tom's recommendation and just have a, what was the verbiage, Tom? A qualified swimmer on site?
For this year, and then revisit next year?
For 2024, and then we'll ask you to come back and, before us in 2025, see how it went, see if there's any complaints or violations or inspection violations?
I mean, I could do that. I would prefer, I mean, I feel like I did partial, the new management team came on last season, and the previous management team was let go, I believe, in June. I came in August, and
So your preference is to have
I feel
a
like
variance from nothing?
I understand the pool wasn't open for a long time, but as I said, I live on the property. I make schedules. People account to me. I know the residents, I design their activities for the week, and I just don't feel, a majority of our residents, we have to bring things to them because they're just not mobile. So the small crowd that uses it, it's 4 feet. They're not swimming unless I'm making them exercise. It just seems, and we don't let them swim alone.
Thank
you can't
for
go
that.
in there alone.
That's enough. Thank you.
Okay,
for
thank
that.
you.
And I think we get the gist of it. And I wasn't.
I'll do whatever you
I was
ask.
just asking, just because if some of the members of the board had misgivings on
Yes.
giving a total variance, that there
Right.
might have been some sort of compromise. For me personally, I have no problem with it, because again, it's under lock and key. It's,
Exactly.
it's private as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And it should be handled as such. But that's just me. I'm just one vote. But if there's any other comments or
Well, I
questions?
thought that last point was relevant. There's a buddy system.
Yes, yes. We have a group called, you'll laugh, but Kindness Camp. We make visits to the rooms to the people that are older that probably should maybe be in assisted living but can't afford it. We have people that, get the mail, this and that. And we have people that will bring them in their chair down. Nobody goes anywhere in the pool or outside by the grill or anything alone. We have a large enough group of people that are able-bodied that help with that kind of stuff. So it's already, without the pool being involved, we already have that system in place.
Okay. Any other comments or questions, members of the board? I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the variance.
I have a motion to approve the variance.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed? Congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to not being on the bad list.
We look forward to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, a stable variance. Laura Rosenfield, owner, 30 Lakeshore Drive, Marston's Mills, map parcel 030-127, 2.01 acre parcel, requesting a setback variance between the property line and the manure storage and waste containment. Good afternoon. Thank you for your patience.
Good afternoon. I'm Laura Rosenfield. This is my husband, Michael. We are requesting a manure storage variance from our abutters. Sorry, this is very new to me, and I'm very nervous.
Look very mean, but we're very nice. Just tell us your story.
So anyway, our the trailer is a trailer that my husband dumps every week, and there's a structure built around it. You have pictures of it, and it is too close, apparently, to the property line, which we did not realize, and it would be very costly for us to have to relocate it. And and we have a very good relationship with our neighbors. They love our horses, and there's a signed letter from them in here too.
See, that was easy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
This is a public hearing. Any members of the public like to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Town staff?
Staff has no objection to granting this variance.
Thank you for that. Members of the board, comments or questions?
Motion to approve the variance.
I have a motion to approve. I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You're approved. Thank you for your patience.
Yes, no, glad it's over.
Next item on the agenda, this is a new septic installer, James Peterson from Mashpee. The exam is was scheduled for 3/20/24.
Yes, he passed the exam, and he's all set with his references. Thank you.
Great. Any members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Town staff said that it was passed the test and
No objections?
references checked. Members of the board, comments or questions?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I have a motion, and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Under presentations, Zenas Crocker is here and has been very patient sitting through all of our agenda items. From Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, will provide an update on the Shubal Pond Septic System Project, which is using the secondary treatment unit STU Nitro. Good afternoon, Zenas.
Chairman Norman and esteemed members of the board, ladies
Hi there.
and gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time. I'm really excited to come back. I wanted to have a little, prop, if you will, for the public to know what we're talking about here. About a third of this bag is nitrogen, and this is what we're working on. In fact, I'm not really sure who's responsible for allowing nitrogen like this to be sold at Home Depot. In a lot of places, you can't even buy this. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on over at Shubal Pond. John, I think you may need to contact somebody in order to get my slide presentation up. David at Channel 18, I don't know if you can call out to him and see if he can
Do you have the
load
slide
that in,
presentation?
and I'll run through it pretty quickly. You guys have been patient, I'm not going to take a lot of
Yeah,
time.
he's got it. He said, just give him a second.
Yep.
So he'll put it up, and there's no remote or anything that we use. I thought there was a remote control or something.
Nobody gives me any.
Okay, remotely.
But isn't there a remote control to flip through the things now?
He's doing it, yeah, see?
He's putting it up like that.
Yep.
While that's loading, does everybody have a copy of my latest newsletter? If you don't, I'm happy to walk one over. Anybody not have it?
I'll take one.
It's very impressive.
Thanks, Zenas.
Thank you.
See you guys again. Probably have one.
I do, but that's fine.
So while they're working on this, I got to, let's go back to that slide. Can you get back to that
I'll
one?
talk to you afterwards.
This is probably the first time you're going to see me quote the Bible when we talk about this. Is kind of interesting.
Slurry from the top to the bottom of the tank. The tank is supposed to separate. Should work.
Should we wait for Tom to come back?
He'll be right back.
And then it's that layer right here that goes out to the T is the issue. So by the time it goes from here to here, those things need to separate. But with X, it starts the real process very rapidly, so it turns to a slurry the whole way over, and that slurry is what goes up and clogs the leak. No more X.
I'm just waiting for Tom. Should I wait for Tom? Might as well, right? Where did he
No,
go?
go ahead. He's smarter than all of us, so.
He's going to miss one of the great moments, though, which is. Yeah. Let's see, we got this going. Where do I have to point? That?
Just right click, it should work, no?
Oh, you have to be over
It's
there?
too far away.
There's Tom. So did you guys happen to see the Wall Street Journal last Friday? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Take a look at this. This was on the back page of the Wall Street Journal. And it was an article about septic systems, something near and dear to everybody's heart on this board. And it was actually a really clever, interesting article, and the first time I've seen the Bible quoted. And what it says there, if you take a minute to look at it, is, hey, you didn't think that what you had approved in your backyard was actually designed by Moses 2,500 years ago. And you know what? It's true, and if you look at what we're looking at every day and what you guys deal with all the time, that's the technology, and that's how old it is. It is literally that old. Let's go to the next slide. So we're seeing changing regulations, and I know you all are going to consider new regulations. I'm really happy about that. I wanted to run through a couple of them. You're probably aware of them, but here's Tisbury in Martha's Vineyard, which has probably been the most progressive in terms of new regulations. Let's look at what they're looking at. Tisbury has some particularly polluted lagoons that they're focused on, and so they're taking pretty significant steps in terms of what they're going to ask the community to do, 1,500 homes, whether it's a house sale or real estate transfer, and frankly, up at some point in time, I'm hoping this is the kind of thing that happens here that causes an upgrade all over Cape Cod. We know right now when you sell a house, a transfer happens, you got to be inspected, just like we heard before. That should really, in my mind, ultimately be a trigger for an upgrade as we're able to do it either to a hookup to the sewer system or a hookup to more advanced technology. But you can see what the criteria is there, new construction, expansion, et cetera. We'll talk some more about that. And one of the things that I've put before Tom and the Conservation Commission is extending the current footprint, not in your purview, but other towns, Mashpee, looking at 1,000 feet from the water, not just 100 feet. It's critical that we look at infrastructure that works and we move it back from the water. Our water's dying, we all know that. Let's go to the next slide. Mashpee I mentioned, let's go to the next slide. So we know the regulations Mass DEP has come up with, new Title V, you guys are well aware of that. I just wanted to point it out to the viewing public that there are best available nitrogen reducing technologies that are identified in this particular document. Let's go to the next slide. One of the key things to consider is that the systems that we're using at Shubal Pond on a test that I'm going to talk more about are under provisional technology, provisional approved technology. There are 3 stages for alternative septic systems that operate at a high level. The first is pilot. You need up to 15 systems for 2 years before you can move to provisional status. Once you're at provisional status, those systems, a total of 50, need to operate for a total of 3 years in order to get fully approved status. The systems that we'll be talking about, 50 were run 2 years ago, this July, so hopefully a year from now, about 15 months, we should see general approval for the system that we're going to talk about. Let's look at the next slide, please. So this system, just to refresh your memory and the public's memory, why are we looking at one system? Why are we focused on this particular system? It's because it's the one that works. And that's particularly critical. We believe, Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, that unless we have a high-performing system, a system that essentially operates in line with the municipal treatment system, the best systems available, it's really not worthwhile. And in fact, some of the generally approved systems simply don't work at a very high level for removing nitrogen. So you can see outlined there some of the reasons that this is critical. We're working with the US EPA, USGS. We're monitoring and testing this system. And really, this is the best-in-class system anywhere in the United States. Let's go to the next slide. The characteristics, relatively low cost. We're going to talk about cost in a minute. It's modular, so it can be expanded to, it's really scaled up to really a small commercial site. Real-time monitoring is absolutely critical. A lot of the systems and a lot of the problems with the systems historically, and Mass DEP will tell you this, people will unplug them. They virtually all need power. And people say, oh, why do I need that? I'll unplug it. I don't have to worry about it. Here, and of course for other things that we have in our house, if you unplug it, there's an alarm that goes off at a remote site to say, hey, the system's not working, what's going on? Either you're going to make a phone call, have it plugged back in, or a truck's going to roll to actually see what the problem is. Let's go to the next slide. Shubal Pond was identified by the US EPA and the US Geological Survey as a great site to test and trial these particular systems. We now have 13 systems in the ground. They've been operating for over 2 years. We have really exciting information, but I just wanted to give everybody a locust of where we're talking about here in the town of Barnstable. And you can see in this particular pond, on the left-hand picture, a little bit fuzzy, but on the top, you can see the algal blooms, the harmful algal blooms that showed up in this pond. And that was one of the reasons we wanted to work in this area. Let's go to the next slide. This is an outline of the sites that we've installed. systems, and we paid for all these systems completely, but just to refresh your memory, there's 13 systems in the ground of this one particular kind, and there are actually over 34 groundwater monitoring wells that are being monitored by the U.S. EPA and the U.S. Geological Survey. Next slide. So we monitor monthly. Really, for a provisional system, you only have to monitor quarterly, but we do more than that because we want to understand everything about how these systems work. That's the key thing. Let's go to the next slide. We've got a lot of partners here. I consider the town of Barnstable a partner. They've been very helpful in being able to allow this collection of systems to be put together. It's going to require a lot of continued work, but the partners have been critical. So I want to give them a shout out. Next slide. So here's the performance. I think this is the exciting part, the interesting part, the part that I want you guys to really take a hard look at in terms of understanding exactly what's going on. So the median numbers, this is over the time period, if you look at from December of 21 to January of this year. So the median in milligrams influent in the septic tank itself is 87.4 milligrams. You can see the variability, the blue bars on that chart. That's particularly interesting and important. The state, whether it's MEP, the Mass Estuaries Project data, or the state DEP data, assumes that influent numbers are between 35 and 45. Find that number on this chart. Can't, okay? We're well above those numbers. What's going on? The MEP numbers are actually the numbers that are looked at for influent coming into a municipal treatment plant. And so that number at our plant's right around 45. We believe, and the data seems to support generally, I won't pick on our system, that leakage, that stormwater, that other things infiltrate typically systems, leaky toilets, a lot of different things can actually cause numbers that are different than what you might expect. So if there's a 30% reduction, which is what's typically looked at in these systems, we'd be looking at a number 60 to 80 milligrams as an influent number, and I'll accept that as a base case. But I wanted you all to see exactly what the numbers that are going into this collection of systems at Schubel. And we picked this area in particular. But we've got households where there's one old person living. We've got households where there's 7 or 8 people, including kids and everything else in the system. We've got people that come just on weekends and stuff. We've got people that are full-time. So we've got a good collection, and I think a good mix to look at what's going on. Here's the exciting thing. The exciting thing is if you look at the effluent numbers that are coming out of these systems right now, 2.9 milligrams, okay? The plant is delivering right now between 5 and 6. So we're looking at numbers that are really amazingly good. We've showed these numbers to a lot of different people who say these numbers actually aren't possible. And I think that people would question it a lot more, except that the data is verified by the U.S. EPA. So our friends at the Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center take all these samples monthly. All the data is verified by the U.S. EPA, and I expect the U.S. EPA will be coming out with a peer-reviewed paper over time to look at these systems and how important they can be. You know, one of the critical questions we've had, we're a nonprofit, we're trying to find the best system, best solutions. So I'm not trying to pick a winner, but we have tried to pick the best-in-class performance because we simply haven't been able to find anybody else, any other system that can perform below 10 milligrams on any kind of a consistent basis. And we're going to talk about that, but we think that's critical, and we think that's the gold standard. Let's go to the next slide. In each household, except for one, we're able to put in water monitoring devices, a so-called Neptune water monitoring system that's used generally. The Hyannis Water Department uses this system. And this is measuring water usage, discrete water usage only on the inside of the house. So we've separated any household outside use at all from this. And here you can see what we're doing in terms of reduction, and that's one of the reasons I have this here. I'm really excited because when we started this, one of the guys that I work for said, let me know when we actually start taking nitrogen out of the system, please, okay? We're paying a lot of money. We collectively have spent probably over $1 million on this project to date, and you can finally look at that chart and say, wow, 14 kilograms, 17 kilograms. We're taking a lot of nitrogen out. It's a lot. It's really significant. And all you got to do is think ahead and think of the importance of what you guys are doing and what you're going to do over time to understand the thousands of systems that we have in the town of Barnstable and what they're doing collectively, not only to the estuaries, which of course, the interesting and kind of dirty little secret about what we're dealing with is Mass DEP is focused on estuary protection. And yet when I talk to a lot of people, including certain people in the town, and I say, well, if you were king of the town of Barnstable instead of just a manager, let's say, would you design a system this way? And the answer is probably not. We're focused on estuary protection because that's what we're mandated, that's what we have to do. But you, the Board of Health, are charged with something higher than that, something more important than that, and that's human health. And so when I look at human health considerations and I look at a lot of what we're doing and pulling out of the ground, and I look at the concerns around PFAS and other things, we simply don't know what we're consuming on a regular basis and what it may mean to us. It wasn't that many years ago, nobody knew what PFAS was, right, or how important it was. When you look at the numbers that are coming out of the systems right now, the drinking water system in Hyannis is delivering over 5 milligrams of nitrogen in the water, the drinking water. Now, Blue Baby is 10 milligrams. That's the gold standard for what you have to do. So I'm not saying it's not a legally developed number, but what I am saying is that kind of number tells you that we're consuming a lot of former wastewater. That's a number that you certainly can look at and say, it could only be wastewater. We know that because when we test and we look at it and we look at the historical numbers, groundwater probably typically has historically far less than 1 milligram in the groundwater. So we wouldn't be consuming these high levels unless it was related to wastewater. So that's important. Let's look at the next slide. So I think what I'm here today is just to illustrate that, show you this great data, which I'm excited about, and also encourage you, and I think the town is working toward this on the sewer side, to get more information in the hands of the community so they can understand what they might be asked to do in the future and so they can understand more about alternative septics and how they work. Our newsletter outlines some of the information we're going to try to provide, but it's also information I think the town can provide, such as, well, how do I know how these different systems work? How do I pick one and not the other? Who do I call to actually look at the engineering front, and how do I design that? Where should it go on the property? We just heard a lot about that, a few minutes ago in terms of how important it is to actually site these things properly. And that kind of information is going to be critical. Let's look at the next slide. This is a slide that George Hoyfelder is going to use. He sits on the Board of Health at the town of Falmouth that I think you guys know. And it's a busy slide, but I want to illustrate it for one particular reason. And the reason is there's about 150 innovative alternative systems in the town of Falmouth. There's 145 here in the town of Barnstable, as I understand it, according to Tom. In the town of Falmouth, there are 15 separate technologies that are being used right now. This data, which is only Falmouth data, shows the performance level of those systems. So a spectrum of performance. The green line is 10 milligrams. Only one system is consistently performing below 10 milligrams. That's the nitro system we're working on. The other line is 20, right around 20 milligrams, which many generally approved systems are scheduled to allow. But you can see in the town of Falmouth, nobody's even making that number. Okay, there's one other system that I won't talk about. It's a proprietary system, good system. I know the developer. And so that's the challenge is how do we look at that and how do the individuals look at that and how do we gate that through time and how do you guys make the right decisions about that? Let's look at the next slide. So MassTech, the Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center, has a website. That's the website link right there. When you go to the website link, there's a lot of tiles, so the individual boxes that are in brownish on the top. And you can look at, there's several dozen different systems. If you click on one system, and I use this just to illustrate, this is the nitro system. If you were to click on that, the box, and click on the name, the box on the right pops up. Let's go to the next slide. And that box, you could then hit the other little blue bar, and this page will show up. And this page shows all the systems and the data that MassTech is collecting. And that little blue dot can be moved, toggled left and right to see how many systems are performing at what level. So I encourage you to go and look at some of the systems that I know are coming before you all the time to see, gee, how are these things actually working? Let's look at how they're working. I think that's what we need to know. And so let's go to the next slide. So this system is performing at a very high level of the nitro system, 25 of the 30 systems, and not all the data has been put in at this point. So this is what the Alternative Septic System Test Center has data on right now, but it shows you 80% of those systems are below 10 milligrams. Pretty darn good. Let's look at the next slide. And, you know, I quasi wrap up to say it's going to be all about money, and we heard that again today. And I'm not insensitive to the idea. How are we going to pay for these things, right? This is going to be, everybody's got a great idea, but unless we can pay for it, it's not going to happen. Which, frankly, that's part of my problem with the sewer and the sewer plan going forward. I'm a big believer that we need to do sewer, we need to do alternative septics, we need to do other things. I think you all know I'm working on, we collectively are working on restoring a cranberry bog area. If we restore that successfully, which I think we will, it would be the equivalent of installing about 300 new septic systems in terms of how much nutrient load we can actually reduce in that area. Another time I'll talk more about that. The cost to sewer that's up here on the screen, I think, is actually way low. When I talk to construction guys about what they're looking at right now, we all know it, we all feel it. We live in a town, so we're very sensitive of what's going on construction cost-wise. The guys in construction are telling me these days we're pretty much looking at a double in cost every 6 years, a 2x. So our numbers for the town of Barnstable in 2018 were $1.5 billion. I'd start putting a 2x on that to get to a real number, okay? And that number is only for 12,000 systems. We have a little bit over 4,000 systems hooked up now. If we add another 12, we're still going to be at only around half of the town. And my concern has been for some time, that we're going to have a problem as we ask for the voters to increase their taxes again and again and again to pay for only the 12,000 units. And so people who live in West Barnstable, that we heard from today, might say, why are my taxes going up? And what do I get? I need to get something. My drinking water comes out of a pipe that's 100 feet away from my septic tank, and yet I have to pay for an upgrade to the sewer. It's not fair. So subsidize to equalize is something a gentleman named Bruce Wilton coined, a phrase he coined, and I think it's a legitimate thing to think about. Chairman Norman talked some time ago and said, gee, the town ought to have skin in the game on this. We ought to figure out how we can help people. The numbers are not trivial. So let's just call it 50 grand plus or minus for a 3 or 4 bedroom home right now to put one of these alternative systems in. There are a lot of costs that I think can and should come down. The engineering numbers alone for that are probably $6,000, which is a crazy number. And I think it can be reduced substantially because in many cases, in fact, for these particular systems, in most cases, we're looking at a retrofit. So we can use an existing septic tank. So really talking about a treatment tank going in and typically a new leaching field because that's the main failure component, as you guys all know. So we've got an $18,000 credit right now from the state. That's not trivial. Over 4 years. To really make the math work, that means you got to be making $100,000 and you got to be a permanent resident. But it's a beginning. When I look at the opportunity to look at, and I know DPW has talked about this, to start to look at not flow necessarily, 110 gallons per bedroom, but rather to look at load. If we can get down to 5 milligrams, you could allow, depending on the other conditions, a 3-bedroom house to go to a 4-bedroom house. And instead of high 80% reduction, you still might get an 80% reduction in waste. That could be a great incentive for somebody, people who want to have an accessory dwelling unit. We desperately need housing in town, or an additional bedroom. And my belief is when we look at that on a long timeline, the town picks up tax dollars, right? The new ADU, the new bedroom, we just increased your tax bill, by the way, forever. And so there's a way to look at the town and have that look at. And I think the other lever over time, it's already out there a little bit, is the ability to finance at low cost. Right now, typically, If your septic system fails, and you guys know this, you're writing a check. You're not going to get a loan unless you have some credit line in your house. Over time, and I think even now, we're starting to see the ability to finance at low cost for another $15,000, $17,000. So if I looked at the blended rate, I think that over time, we're going to see the ability to put more of these systems in. I think we have to look very carefully. One of the contentious issues you guys will have to deal with is the sewer is coming, when is it coming, and when do I get a pass? When can I actually say I can wait for the sewer versus putting one of these systems in? I don't agree with some of the math that's being looked at, that we need 100% removal and 100% participation in order to make the plant work. And I'll get pushback on that. But some people I've talked to, including George Hoyfelder, who's very well respected, said, over time, I don't see why a checkered board situation can't work. Some households may have alternative septics and can participate, and others are going to hook up to the sewer. And collectively, we can see the problem solved holistically. And in certain areas of high density, sewer is going to make just much, much more sense. And in other areas that are miles and miles away from the plant where we have multiple pumping stations, it's just going to make more sense to put these systems in over time. So let's go look at the last slide, which is, what am I looking for? What am I hoping we'll do? I'm hoping you guys will institute new rules and that there'll be adaptive rules so you can adjust as time goes by. Mass DEP has put in regulations, so there's no reason you can't start to see more provisional systems put in. Certainly, nitro is best in class, but I think talking about some level of performance is the right way to think about it. There's going to be other systems that are going to perform over time. Time to travel is critical in terms of thinking, and by that I mean, in my mind, the most critical areas for you guys to focus on is anything that's close to the water or close to a drinking water well. That really ought to be the line of first defense. So I would argue that anytime somebody comes in front of you, you ought to be looking at where that lives in the water. Where does that live, whether it's next to an estuary or whether a lake and pond or whether it's a drinking water well? How close is it? That's a critical item. The sewer is critical and very important, but time to travel on Cape Cod is between 1 and 4 feet a day, right? So many of the sewer lines that go in, it's really going to be decades before that groundwater gets cleaned up. It just takes a long time. So the people, the households closest to the water, they're the most important. They're the ones that we need to look at. So there are many things we need to do, and you guys are great to listen to me for as long as you did. I'm happy to answer any questions. You may have some. We're doing a lot of good work. We're hoping to do more. So thank you for all the good work that you all do, and to Tom and Sharon for all the work that they do. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you for that. Are there any board members with comments or questions for Zenas?
Phosphorus.
Yeah, so the doctor has a system, FujiClean system, that removes phosphorus. Phosphorus is a critical component and tremendously important. Here's our view on phosphorus is as follows. I think that phosphorus removal systems are going to be critically important close to any lake or pond. That's really the target area. And I would say, just like I had a slide up, 1,000 feet from the water, that's probably for a lake and pond where a phosphorus system ought to be looked at. Now, the system that we work on, the nitro system, is really targeting nitrogen, not phosphorus. You do see some diminishment of phosphorus, but it's not designed to do that. You can add things onto these systems. So the doctor has a system called FujiClean, which is actually probably the only system in the town of Barnstable that actually does remove phosphorus right now. So the different ways you can look at phosphorus, and talking to the U.S. Geological Survey, I think that what's important to know is that unlike nitrogen, which travels easily through the sandy soils of Cape Cod into any water body, phosphorus is an element that actually gets bound up quickly to both iron and manganese, both of which we have a lot of on the soils of Cape Cod. So when I look at the U.S. Geological Survey and their data, very quickly the phosphorus gets bound up. And that's why I say 1,000 feet would probably take care of it. There are drip systems. So, for instance, if you had a drip system attached to your nitro system that you were using the gray water, which is practically potable, by the way, for the kind of condition of the water that's coming out of this particular system, you could use it for your lawn, you could use it for your garden. And getting that in that area would probably be a terrific way, and you would reduce a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus, additional nitrogen, but particularly phosphorus if you did that. So I think that's important. It's important, particularly important in certain areas. You know, the interesting thing about phosphorus is that it doesn't go away, right? It lives in the pond and it stays there. So we've been accumulating it over millennium. There's a lot of organic phosphorus that's out there. And so when I look at a lot of the ponds and talk to the U.S. Geological Survey, who I think are the smartest people in the room on this, they think a lot of the additional load is probably coming in from stormwater. Certainly the houses closest to the ponds are most concerning, but stormwater is a not trivial amount that we need to be concerned about. And for most of the ponds, they already have a lot of phosphorus in them, and they've had that over time. And that's why you guys are involved, no doubt, in the alum treatments that are being used for many of the ponds. But an alum treatment is really kind of a cover-up, described to me by the scientists as, you know, you take your dirty desk and you put a sheet of paper over it and you just start over. And that's what an alum treatment is. You're just starting over. It's not solving the problem. It's kind of just covering it up, and you get to build from there. Any other questions?
Comments,
Anybody?
questions, anyone else?
I have a question about bullet number 1. What are you suggesting there? What new rules are you suggesting?
Well, you know, I'd like to see adoption of a level of performance. I think 10 milligrams is a very reasonable level of performance to go after. There's going to be other systems that can get there and do get there over time. I know P.O. Lombardo was due to be here, and he has a system that's approved, Nitrix, which seems to get 10 milligrams. There aren't a lot of those systems out there, and it's not modular the way it's modular in a different way. But I'm not an expert on POs. I haven't used those systems, but I'm familiar with it. There are some other companies that are building systems that look very, very promising that should be at that level. And I think at that level of performance, we're starting to look at something good. I'm not a fan of the generally approved systems that are delivering only 19 or 20 milligrams, because I think they're just not doing the job. And I just don't think, they still cost a lot of money. They're not
We
just not-
agree. As a matter of fact, Tom Lee and the board's been working on a new policy for best available technology that goes beyond Title V, even
Right.
stricter. And it's almost ready, correct?
Yeah.
Just needs some tweaking.
Yeah, and so I think, you know, a new build, and listen, it drives me crazy when I drive around and I see houses that are close to the water, and I have a, you know, personal experience as a family that lives down the street from our offices in Osterville, and the guy's a very nice guy, and he came to me early and he said, oh, I bought this great lot, you know, it cost just under $3 million, and I'm building this great house, had to have cost an easy $3-4 million bucks, okay? And I want to do the right thing, I want to put in one of these nitro systems, I'm really excited about it. And then he called me as the house was being built, this was not that long ago, and said, oh, God, you know, I wish I could still do it, but the costs of construction have gone up so much, I can't do it anymore. I'm just going to put in a Title V. This house is like right on North Bay. It's right in the zone, and it drives me crazy, right? Because here's somebody who could afford to do it all day long, is spending millions of dollars on a house. The house next door just sold for $12.2 million. That house was also a house that no doubt came before you because it was a gentleman from Nantucket who was a developer. I talked to him and said, gee, I'd love to see you do the right thing. I'd love to see you do this. Maybe, you know, maybe there's a way to help. Maybe Concom will help you put in a dock or do something. And he's an attorney, like I said, from Nantucket. And he said, well, nobody's going to make me do it. I'm just going to put in Title V, period. See you later. Thank you very much. The guy walked away with millions and millions of dollars in profit. And we are stuck with a very big house that's polluting for the next 30, 40 years, right? You know, unless something else happens. And so that's the kind of thing that I think this board needs to put a stop to. Anybody, in my view, who lives on the water, any water, can afford to upgrade the system, especially if you get a grant, especially if you look at other grants, and maybe there's other mechanisms for people that I understand inherited and may have more difficulty. But, you know, we're building in forever pollution, and I always say, we're turning up the heat and we're adding bad things to water. The water's getting worse at an accelerating rate. And I know that because we study it and we do that yearly, and I can tell you that things continue to look worse and worse. It hasn't changed.
Okay, thank you so much. Members, everything? Appreciate that. Thank you for that presentation.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
I'll be
Steve.
back. Appreciate the time. Take care.
Thank you.
On the agenda, as mentioned, P.O. Lombard was going to come in, but was unable to, so we've moved that presentation, Sharon. He'll let us know when he's available, so we don't have to vote on it. And then just the continuation of regulations and policies. Policy, continued enforcement of local and state codes for new construction exceeding the maximum allowable wastewater discharge at parcels located within nitrogen-sensitive areas not serviced by public sewer. Use of best available technologies. As Tom Lee and Tom McKeon said, there's still being kind of detailed and minor changes, but I just wanted to keep it on the agenda so that we keep addressing it and keep looking at it. But we will, I have a motion to continue till next month's meeting.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's continued. Any comments or questions on the minutes? If everyone had a chance to review from February 27th? Any changes?
I'm going to have to move that to the next meeting.
Give me a minute. Okay, we'll move those. We don't need to vote on that. And with no further ado, we entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you so much.